Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on The Insight. Remember, The Insight is that program where we extract habits of issues that help in shaping our nation. And today, we are conversing with Dr. Chuks-Ronnie with special focus on education in Nigeria. Today, we examine the true state of Nigerian education. The data is sobering. We see chronic underfunding, incessant strike actions, a massive shortage of qualified teachers, an infrastructural deficit that simply cannot support 21st century learning. We must acknowledge government efforts, but the current system is not working for the majority of our children. Stay with us as Dr. Olachi Chuks-Ronnie give us deep insight on education in Nigeria. Doctor, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Olachi Chuks-Ronnie is the Regional Coordinator, Southern Nigeria Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. She is a mentor, a coach, a counselor, a marriage counselor, and a pastor. And yes, Doctor, you can see I'm excited to finally have you on this.
Thank you.
To have you at Aneke TV and on The Insight.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we are discussing education.
Yeah.
But first, before I go on with the questions, I want to get your view about the state of education in Nigeria.
Okay. I don't think anybody needs to be educated any further than what the eyes can see. Again, looking at the rating of our universities and perhaps other educational institutions, we know that our status has gone really bad. I don't think any one Nigerian university comes within the first to 500 or 1,000 universities across.
No.
So if we can get to the point of sending our children to Cotonou here to go to university, and within other African sub-regions where the countries were much more better off many years ago, you can see the state of decay. So it's really something to worry about.
Yes, very worrisome, Doctor. But let me, come back to the basics.
Yes.
I'm looking at the federal government of Nigeria and the 22 states combined allocation, talking about budgeting, you understand? We were told that about 6.13 trillion, representing 9.27% of total budget, still falls far below UNESCO and World Bank. For UNESCO, that should be 26%, and for World Bank is 20 to 30%. And then our budgeting falls below the benchmark for education spending. And I want to ask, what impact might this relatively low education budget funding have on the ability of the Nigerian educational sector to deliver basic and secondary education to Nigerians?
Okay, the consistent low budgeting and funding to education is responsible for what we are seeing now.
Okay.
So I think successive governments have failed to pay attention to budgeting in education. And then the World Bank and the UNICEF and UNESCO, as you've said it, didn't miss words in the recommendations they made. And it's something that is supposed to happen consistently over time in terms of the budgeting. But our governments are more or less looking at quick wins. Education is an investment on the intellectuality of the average human being. And each government has approximately 4 to 8 years to stay. So within those periods, they wouldn't be seeing some of the dividends they can attribute to themselves as what they have achieved. So because of that, less attention is paid to that. They are looking at gigantic projects that they can put names to, legacy projects, so to say, what they will refer to as what they did before they left government. And because of that, budget into education. It has even gotten better. A few states within the Southeast, I don't need to mention names, have really tried to up their game in that, and they've continued to do that, because investment in education is a holistic thing. When we were doing some development interventions, focus was paid to the basic education, which is from nursery to junior secondary school.
Yes.
But now you also know that the universities are also suffering. So it should be a holistic approach all the way. So that once they finish from the basic and go to senior secondary, the next place to go is either the university or vocational schools where they can learn some skills. All of these things require deliberate planning and deliberate focusing, which unfortunately...
Deliberate planning,
yes.
deliberate focusing,
Yes.
which unfortunately is lacking in this climate.
Yes.
All right. Doc, can we then link the low educational funding to the high rates or high number of out-of-school children in Nigeria?
Definitely, and not only that, even poor performance. Look at how we have downgraded our pass marks so far. I know that in the past, the very first time I started JAMB, when I left secondary school, and I scored 264, I won't forget. I didn't get admission within the first one. And to my father, I had failed with 264. Eventually, when I gained admission, I scored 316. But these days, they are struggling to give pass mark of 180, 160. 180 is not a pass mark because it's not even within the average, but that's what we have found ourselves in. So the low level to which education has fallen has also affected even the output in the long run.
You know, somewhere along this conversation, I was going to ask if you wrote JAB, you know, but I will still get to it.
Okay.
Yes, definitely, I will still get to it. But Doctor, still focusing on the issue of out-of-school children, you know, as a nation, it's becoming a concerning issue that the number of out-of-school children, despite education being free in Nigeria, we are told that the numbers are so high that Nigeria alone accounts for about 15% of global out-of-school population.
Okay.
You know, and then the reports has it that the out-of-school children in Nigeria alone accounts for about 10.5 million and over 18 million children, ranging from 5 years to 14 years. Just Nigeria alone, Doctor?
There are lots of factors to this. One is Nigeria's population.
Okay.
Then other countries that have, I think Nigeria used to rank 5th highest populated country in the world. So out of other countries that have high population like China, Japan, India, the United States, they've all moved on in development trajectory. But Nigeria has remained where it is. Then looking at some socio-cultural factors that have limited us. Again, while Nigeria is planning and the population is growing, we are not taking into cognizance the population growth so that planning can match the increase in population. So that is why if you take a ratio of number of schools to children, you find that there are some communities that don't have any primary school at all. So children have to trek to neighboring communities to go to school. It has been shown several in the television where children are learning under mango trees. Some are within a classroom, no chairs, some no roof over their heads. One was featured when children were learning and rain was falling on them. And then looking at the ratio of teachers to the pupils even, how are the teachers in Nigeria being taken care of? How are they being treated? They go on strike like every other person. But I remember when we were small, the people that used to be respected in those days were teachers. And they weren't even that lettered. It's not all of them that went to
in
the
Enugu
university.
State,
They
like their
finished secondary school,
counterparts
went
work.
to teachers training, come out and begin to teach. And they were so very well respected. Those that used to call Onye Nkuzi a teacher. And then they are all both male and female. So these are some of the dynamics that have gotten us where we are today.
Oh. All right. Doc, sorry, I want to ask, from your experience, is it not time we declare a state of emergency on education in Nigeria, especially basic education? Because now you mentioned lack of infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Where in this time, we still have children learning under the tree.
Declaring a state of emergency is an understatement. But I want to throw the question back to you.
Okay.
How many sectors have the country declared an emergency, a state of emergency, and it came to something? Sometimes I feel it's all talk and no action. For there to be a state of emergency, certain indices have got to be in place. If the states will give themselves matching orders that there are no budgets, I'm happy for Enugu state government. Their budget into education exceeded even the World Bank and the UNESCO recommendation. I think they went up to 30 or 32 if I'm right. and they've been investing in all sectors of education. So to be a good thing, the federal government and the state government deem it fit to declare a state of emergency, but there should already be a plan in place and a strategy for implementing the plan over a period of, say, 20 or 30 years, because it's not something that can happen overnight. You know, whilst we are talking, you mentioned that education is free in Nigeria. Is it really free? Because they will declare
that's our policy.
Free and compulsory education from primary to junior secondary. But parents still find themselves paying some things, or giving one name or the other, and they still pay, even those who cannot afford it. Even registering for WAEC alone is so expensive that some families cannot afford to register, and their children cannot sit for West African School Certificate examination.
Yeah,
so,
very well said. You know, I was going to, ask for your advice. I know, and I was told, and through my research, I discovered that you're a developmental expert as well.
Yes.
I know that it has to be paid for, but I was going to ask what you would recommend to Nigerian government as a solution to this issue of, one, out-of-school children, then issue of underfunding and lack of infrastructure, because now you've told me that in Nigeria it's all about rhetorics. Yes. Even if we declare a state of emergency, it could be rhetorics. You understand? Mm-hmm. So I'm asking, what can we do? What would you advise? Let's just without paying for that, because let's just get a tip.
Okay, there are a number of things that could be done.
Yes.
The starting point is to have the records. We do not invest in data. Some of these data that we are throwing out, we don't even know how they were all thrown up. Let the government do a complete and holistic review of the status of education in Nigeria as at today. That indices will tell them where the numbers are high, what are the reasons why they are like that. You also remember I mentioned the issue of our social-cultural factors. It is not news that some of those figures are coming from the northern part of Nigeria. The question is why? Again, a lot of those numbers are coming from girls who could not go to school again in the same part of the country due to those socio-cultural and religious factors. If the governors of these states can sit down and begin to look at what they need to do to shove the numbers. For instance, in the southern part of Nigeria, boy-to-girl ratio in education is almost at par. In some places, you find even the girls outnumbering the boys at some point, but it's not the same within the northern. So there has to be huge investment by both the federal government, the state governments, and the local governments, especially in northern Nigeria, because that's where the huge figures are coming from. And then put some policies in place that make it compulsory in terms of, after all, the age of maturity in Nigeria is 18. That if, for instance, no girl child should be married without finishing secondary school, it becomes a law. So you find out before they get to 18, or within that 18 bracket, they would have finished secondary school. Then they are free to marry. Why will a girl child get married much earlier than 18, drops out of school? Then what kind of mother is she going to be? So if her children end up not going to school, it's not a big deal, because she herself didn't get to have that level of education as well. And then the ripple over effect will continue to see. So if we have this deliberate plan and policy and put square pegs in square holes, that's another thing. You don't go and carry...
Please, just to cut you short a bit, you talked about putting square pegs in square holes. Yeah. Please, if you wouldn't mind, can you elaborate a little bit so that the people we are speaking to can get these policies?
Yes. One of the challenges we have in Nigeria is, for instance, when a new government comes on stream and names of these members of the state executive council are submitted to the House, they are not submitted with their portfolios. So the scrutiny is just general. But if you are appointing a minister or a commissioner for education, for instance, and you see the person's CV or citation reflecting experience in that sector, it becomes easier to hold me accountable for whatever happens within the sector. But when you go and take an agric extension specialist and make him minister for education or commissioner for education, what would you expect. Experience matters in everything you do. That expertise, even the long-term planning we are talking about, it wouldn't be by just anyhow person. People in the academia who have an understanding of what it takes to run the educational sector should all be brought together as a think tank group to begin to churn out some of these policies that will help to improve education in Nigeria, with the government being ready to put forth their money too, because it's in the concurrent list, so the local government, the state, and the federal government all contribute to that. If you can have that understanding of making sure that those minimal contributions are made, I'm sure we'll be on our way to coming out of the doldrum.
Yeah, I wish they'll be able to pay for this advice, and because I know people, they pay to consult you to give such advice. But thank you very much. Then moving forward, I want to bring on the issue of how do you view government's policy or intention to introduce vocation, or what we call handwork, into the school curriculum in Nigeria?
Very beautiful. Even I hear that even in the NYSC now they are doing it. You wouldn't leave camp without a skill. So Anambra State government is doing it on a general note. One youth, 2 skills. You can never beat a skill. Everybody must not have university education. It is our attention to paper qualification that has also contributed in getting us to where we are at now. Everybody wants to carry a certificate. And then because of that, even when you leave university, you're not thinking beyond carrying your certificate and looking for jobs. Yes. Some people will say, "Oh, me, a graduate for that matter." They hold you, but you are not worth anything. Even the certificate you're carrying is not worth anything. So vocational education is one of the ways to go. If you recall, when the British came to Nigeria and then introduced education, they all started and initiated vocational schools as well, like the GTC that we have in Enugu. There's so many people graduated through there. Before they left secondary school, they are either auto mechanics or plumbers or all kind of skill. They go with it. So that if you come out and you do not have the brain to continue to go to university, you can have a skill and you start working on. These days, plumbers are difficult to find. Anyone you see is a very old hand who has not imbibed modern ways of plumbing. So you find out we are still having a challenge in that in so many areas. The easiest thing they do is to go and buy keke and pep and start riding. Riding keke is not a skill. But when you build a skill, that skill remains with you. And then people will come and learn under you. And then you'll be churning out several other people that have the skills like you. And then we will be the better for it. Ordinary medicine will now go to Cotonou here to bring them to come, and plumbing will go to Cotonou. You can't find Nigerian youth willing to invest in a skill that will help them. So if the federal government will introduce it, running parallel to the normal education, that is good. It's not that we will waive these other ones and ensure, but everyone has got to have a skill that you can be held accountable for.
All right, Doctor, I want to veer off a little bit, because while you were speaking, something came into my mind.
Yes.
You're comfortable with the apprenticeship system in Igbo, the apprenticeship system in Igbo land.
Yes.
Why is it difficult for government to inculcate that into the education system? For example, where I, Uche Osai, will be attached to Dr. Chuks-Ronnie to learn the things you do, like counseling, as part of my curriculum in school, that before I graduate, another Dr. Olachi is replicated. Yes. Why is it difficult for Nigeria to copy this system? Because I am told, and I see that it's being celebrated even in Harvard. Yes. There are articles supporting that. But in Nigeria, where the Igbos are, is not imbibed, is not inculcated into the curriculum.
I don't think they really do have a full understanding of how it works. No, it's something that the Igbos have done, and it has remained within the Igbo circle. But it's just like you mentioned, Harvard, who have understudied it and seen it as a good thing to do. A few other people are coming up and trying to do that, but it's still within the private sector. If government can make it a national issue, it will go a long way. Maybe part of what they had in mind in starting the National Directorate of Employment, that was part of it, but they've not taken it beyond that level. It should be expanded to incorporate the apprenticeship scheme, and other skills that people can learn. And then so people will have a wide variety of opportunities and places they can pick up skills.
All right. Moving on now. I want to bring your attention. You're well-traveled. You're
Yes.
very well-read. Now, yes, this government policy reversal, and then speaking to scrapping of the national policy that mandated the use of indigenous language as the medium of instruction in schools. Let me give context to this. There is a policy as introduced around 2022 in Nigeria that required that people from early childhood education to primary six in Nigeria are taught in their mother tongue, you understand, for communities, in communities, and with the aim of preserving, one, the indigenous language, and as a way of improving early learning. But recently, government has scrapped that policy. Do you agree to this?
Okay.
No.
There are several contexts to that in terms of the scrapping. Maybe government have seen that it's not working, and that's why they did the scrapping. I'll give us some instances. English language is supposed to be our lingua franca. Then that is the common language that binds all of us together because we are from different ethnic nationalities. Ordinarily, and then Nigerians are allowed to live in any part of the country that they desire. Then coming down to the family, how many families these days teach their children in their indigenous language? So even if they are taught, perhaps you're from the southeast and you're living in Kaduna, and the general language that Kaduna is known for is Hausa, and then you're Igbo. So even if they are speaking Igbo to you at home, when you go to school and they speak Hausa, it becomes a problem if you don't make yourself able to learn. So the easiest and commonest language with which they can learn is English. Then look at it again, conversely. There are certain subjects which you cannot find the local language for. For instance, if you're teaching physics, how do you talk about atom and atomic bomb and all of those things that have connotation in English? If we develop our own indigenous or expand our indigenous languages, it may become a lot easier for people to learn. Perhaps that's the reason, one of the reasons why children are failing. If you look at language courses in exams, a child who is a Yoruba, at home they speak Yoruba, he comes to school, they are teaching him Igbo. There is no way he's going to learn it. So they're always failing languages in school. Maybe these are things they have looked at and felt, for now, we are not ripe enough for it. One of the starters will be to ensure that parents bring up their children at home in their local language, so that children learn. If you have a child of 6 years and you're speaking your Igbo to the child, from the East, and the child is telling you, I don't speak Igbo, I don't understand Igbo, and the parents are Igbo, mother, father are Igbo. You also look at the issue of intermarriages, interethnic marriages. An Urobo man comes to marry a Yoruba person. The Yoruba person doesn't understand Urobo. The Urobo person doesn't understand Yoruba, and they have a child. What will be the medium of communication? Which language will the child speak?
Nigerian Pidgin English.
Which is not internationally accepted.
Yes.
So these are some of the drawbacks to all of this. Maybe the withdrawal of the policy may not be like to infinity. They want to go back to the drawing board and perhaps re-examine how that can work before they bring it back.
Okay. While you were talking, I was previously going to make the argument against government argument that those that studied with indigenous language end up failing exams like WAEC, NECO, and JAM. They do not do well in English comprehension and all that. But I was going to make an argument. And when you said, you thought about teaching atom, like in physics and others, I was going to make the argument, is it not time that we develop these subjects with indigenous language, that could be easier? Like when you're teaching me atom in my language, Igbo, it may be difficult for me to forget that, and I can relate with it more than English. And I want to make this argument against the background that when you go to Chinese, they use Chinese language to teach physics.
Yes. So, now, even at that, really, come to think of it, we are our own problems. In Chinese, you're born a Chinese and you're taught in Chinese at home before you go to school. How many parents teach their children their indigenous language? That is the starting point of the failure we are talking about. Children no longer understand their language. Even if they do, it's just at the periphery. I remember when I went to the US, I spent a couple of months there with my cousin. All the attempt they made, they speak Igbo to their children. They understand all that they say, but they cannot speak it. But the important thing is that they understand, but they are not able to. When they make attempt to speak, you will laugh because they're... So it's like that. If they're coming down home here, it's basically the same thing. People don't speak their language to their children. So, but they forget that their primary language is that their native tongue, which they have to learn. So when they go to school, definitely they will still learn English. So I think we need to start from our homes, letting parents know the implications of what we are doing. Because in the nearest future, some languages may become extinct because parents no longer speak them to their children. Okay. Even for us, our native language, how fluently do we read in them? Let's just be honest. We can speak, but to read and to write may be a problem.
Should we blame the government or the family for that?
It's the family first. That's where it starts.
But they, given the economic conditions that we have in Nigeria, you have a lot of parents going out in the morning to go fend for the family.
Absolutely.
And they send us to school to learn these things.
Those days, they were also going out.
Okay.
And then all these things were happening. We are finding it convenient in schools not to do the right things.
All right. Doc, this is where I am going to ask you. That question you answered, then you were talking about JAMB. And I said I was going to ask, did you write JAMB in your time?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Was it this way?
No.
It wasn't this way. I'm asking this question because a lot of people have made the argument that it's time we scrap JAMB. Given that nearly 380,000 children, or let me say candidates this time around, were forced to retake the exam, this past exam. And we'll talk about glitches, we'll talk about unreliable scores, and over 70% of candidates scoring below 200 marks. Then, when we state this, we look at the fact that after writing JAMB, these students are meant to go again and write post-UME exams.
I thought that one has been scrapped.
But some schools still do.
Some schools
yes.
So that means maybe they do not have confidence in the efficacy of JAMB. But I will tell you this. One of the major challenges we face is that we do not test a process before we run with it. That sitting JAMB, computer-based JAMB, should have been tested over time. And then it should have been rolled out gradually. You cannot compare a child growing up in the city to a child who has grown up in the village, who does not, most of the time, does not have electricity. So, and then business centers where you can learn the computer is not available. So then you use the same size to fit all. No, it should have been a gradual rollout until every child, did they make computer science or computer studies compulsory in schools? The answer is no. How many schools in community, even in the city, have computer lab where children can go to learn, apart from some private schools? Even if when I offered computer science as an elective, as a general course in the university, but I never sat on any computer until I started in the exam. It was all theory. So how do children learn like that? So we don't test a process. It's a good decision to make, but is Nigeria right for it? That's the thing. And I want to also agree with those who may feel that that's part of the reasons why people are failing JAMB the way they are. So it's something that they need to think about again. In terms of scrubbing JAMB, that may not be right at this point in time because of the kind of things that we do in Nigeria. It's about who you know. A child who scores higher will not get admission because the father knows somebody, and a child who scored higher, nobody can go and speak for you and all of that. But there are many private schools now in Nigeria which are making up for the shortfalls that you see JAMB several times over before you gain admission. Yes.
But unfortunately, a lot of Nigerians can't even afford those private institutions.
That's right, yeah, that's right. But when the children of the rich or well-to-do move out and go there, it creates room for for the others in the
then
public schools.
even higher education is no longer as affordable as it used to be.
Yeah.
And anyway, before I get that, I was going to ask, what was the experience like writing JAM those days?
Okay,
Yes.
no, we all studied. Like I said, it was, I recall my very first JAMB, I had 256, and I didn't get admission. I wanted to study mass communication. By the way, that was the first thing I read, so this is a familiar terrain. Yeah, so, but I didn't get admission in the amongst the first people to be, so I had to wait for supplementary admissions to be. Even though I had supplementary, it didn't get to me eventually. They were cutting off 280, 293 something for certain levels of courses then, you know. So sometimes people settled for less than what they would have wanted because of not eating up with JAMB.
But would you say that the system there was more sanitized than what we're witnessing now?
Yeah, people paid attention to studying and education. These days, children don't read. They are buried in phones and computers and watching video games and all of that. That time, we studied. My father practically followed. If you have the weak pass in an exam, he will come and look at your paper, see mathematics, see English. If you don't score very high in those ones, he say you should repeat a class. You passed though, but he forced you to repeat a class. All right. Because as far as he's concerned. But these days, parents themselves are going to buy scores for their children. So how do you compare the two?
All right. Yeah. Doc, on that note, we'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll look at the university system in Nigeria.
Okay.
The Insight with Uche Osai.
Having the political will to confront whatever is the challenges.
Igbo man wrestles with
the tortoise that had a lot of ingenuity, a lot of ideas, and the tireless.
It will take the bold mind of government in power to say, let there be electoral reform, no matter whose heart is God.
I was there. We did everything. All of us came and supported him with our last blood.
In-depth analysis, expert views, real voices, uncover the stories shaping Nigeria today. Deep dive, honest, unfiltered, only on the Insight with Uche Osai on Aneke TV. Join us. All right, thank you for staying with us on the Insight, and we've been discussing with Dr. Olachi Chuks-Ronnie, Regional Coordinator, Southern Nigeria Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. She is equally a mentor, a coach, a counselor, and a marriage counselor as well, and she is equally a pastor. And today we're having conversation with special focus on education in Nigeria. Dr. Olachi, yes, we were talking about the system, you know. We're saying now parents go to procure scores for their children.
Yes.
And I'm really asking, what has happened? Is it a moral decay in the society, or that we no longer trust the system enough where it becomes survival of the fittest for parents to now be involved in such polling scenario where they no longer encourage the children to read but procure scores for them?
Yeah, I think the number one thing there on the radar is the fall in morality. Our moral compass, in fact, when you even don't give money to get admission for your children, people will be wondering which planet you dwell in. Throughout my school days until I went to the university, it was something that was strange for your parents to go and pay money to get admission for you. It was a no-no. And even when I was in the university, all this handout thing that people would pay for, what lecturers did was just simply to recommend textbooks for you. Then if your parents can afford, you go and buy. Sometimes we used to go and borrow textbooks from our lecturers to be able to photocopy and read and all. But these days, the lecturers themselves are also making their own money by doing, preparing their handouts, and then people are paying. Even class reps to join in making the money. The lecturer says the handout is 5,000, you add 1,000 on top and be making. So everywhere, people are trying to extort one person or the other. It's just the moral decadence in the society. And it's going to get worse because we have, our standards have dropped, really. We've dropped the ball in terms of standard for measuring.
Dr. Olachi, can I play a little bit of the devil's advocate here?
Okay.
Can I attribute all this decadence and droppings in quality to the economy, poor economy that we have in Nigeria, that people are fighting for survival?
Well, I think I've thought about it before, and I actually wondered, is it really about poor economy? In those days when we were small, the economy of a lot of parents was poor too. Many of us grew up in "first me, I slap you." That's what my husband used to call it. Environment where parents with 5 children are living in 1 room or 2 rooms. Everybody's struggling to make a living, yet there were standards of morality expected of everyone. So if people could still stay sane those days, it's because we put money first now. So that's why everybody is shouting, even the economy. I do understand really that the economy has gone back. But from time, there are people who grew up within that environment, but they were still sane. They didn't go out of their way to do. But what do we have now? People are into all sorts of, including those who are ruling us. Everybody is cheating one way or the other. So what do you expect?
All right, let me return back to the conversation.
Okay.
Let me get your experience while you were in the university and from what you've seen happening. For example, the amount you paid. I suppose you attended a federal university if you did attend in Nigeria, because I know that at your time, the private universities were not a thing. They were not a thing then. Now, I'm asking you your experience from what you paid as school fees, as hostel fees, compared to what's happening now and the experience then. Would you compare the quality to what perhaps you have seen or your children have told you or you hear from the news?
And I'm paying too because I have a child in the university.
All right.
In fact, I still remember because I'm somebody that keeps records. All the receipts of school fees payment from first year to final year, I still have them. So I schooled at the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. And when I was...
Whoa, you're a lioness.
Yes, I am.
Let me give a shout out to our institution.
Great lioness.
All right.
Yes. So I had, my fee then was, accommodation was 110 naira. School fees was 90 naira.
Wow.
So on the whole, I paid 200 naira.
Wow.
Until I finished.
Doc, do you know, I pride myself in paying the highest amount I paid as school fees and accommodation was 14,000 naira. And here I'm hearing
110 accommodation.
It keeps getting worse.
900 for school fees. So 200 naira put together.
Wow.
Until I graduated.
Wow.
In 1995.
Wow. It's getting far worse.
Yes, it's
because
getting. But again, compare the value of money. Then 200 naira then is like 200,000 now.
Okay.
So if people are paying 150, 200, it's basically about the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about recently. Nigerian universities, like you did mention while we were talking, none of the Nigerian universities were able to scale. They were ranked way, way lower. None of them came in between the 500 mark of universities in the world global ranking. And it becomes quite worrisome. Does it bother you?
Of course, I do get bothered. Because if you look at some of the developed countries, none of them has ever dropped the ball on their standard. When you talk about the US, you mentioned Harvard, you mentioned MIT, and all the rest. When you come to the UK, you mentioned Oxford, you mentioned Cambridge, you mentioned University College London. Their standards are still the same after hundreds and hundreds of years. You ask yourself why. But our own, it's even almost some of the private schools that people are paying through their noses that are trying to come up to certain standards. And if you look at those private schools, it's either established by some foreigners who want to maintain their certain standard. And all of us are also moving in droves, sending our children to other places to go and study. So it's really worrisome.
Very worrisome, yes, because the more worrisome that the federal universities in Nigeria don't even make the mark.
Exactly.
And I want to ask, if you can lend your voice to the issue of incessant strikes in Nigerian universities, is it an issue, and how can we, I know I'm coming again asking for your opinion that should be paid for, but what can we actually do to see that this issue of incessant strike is deleted from our system?
If you look at the Nigerian scenario, there are certain categories of people that we should not joke with. They include teachers, doctors. But here the reverse is the case. People in government or in politics, in National Assembly, some of who are not literate enough, are smiling home every month with millions. A university professor, Professor Emeritus, all of them are going home with less than $500,000. So how do you make the comparison? People who are teaching in primary school overseas are well respected and they are well paid. And for a program of 4 years, I did it in 6 years, almost 6 years, because of incessant strike. Sometimes we are home for 5 months, we are home for 6 months, we are home for 4 months until you graduate, because they've not taken time to pay attention to this category of people that need attention to be paid to. And then the universities are left to rot. Populations have expanded, and then we didn't expand the infrastructure. The same thing I said earlier about not taking into cognizance the growing population. So when you build a school initially, maybe it started with a total population of 800. Now some schools have up to 15,000 students with the same facilities. Some of them go to university from the home. But when we were in the university, they say if you pass through the university should pass through you.
Yes.
But when you're going to university from home, you're not a part of the system. There's a difference between those who went to the university living on campuses and those who went from their homes. These are some of the challenges they were faced with, but people in government do not pay attention to these things.
Okay. You know, a lot of times we'll talk about funding, which is very, very necessary for our education sector. But, you know, speaking to this ranking now, do you look at the quality of research from our institutions, the innovations from our institutions? They are on the decline. Should we equally attribute this to low funding? Because this is one of the reasons they give for at least the 2025 global ratings of Nigerian universities not making the mark in this year.
Some of them that do get involved in research is through international funding. Hardly do they receive funding locally. I told you we don't invest in research, we don't invest in data, we're not interested. Other people will come from the outside and conduct forensic research or whatever in every area we need to be able to get the required data for planning. So sometimes I wonder, on what basis do we plan in Nigeria? Every year we bring out budget, we do a plan. What is the basis for that budget? Did we do any research to be able to come up what the needs assessments are, to be able to budget money to meet with them? The answer is no. So that's why things are still the way they are. We are not putting enough funding to the universities.
All right. Doc, are you conversant with the word Japa?
Yes, very.
Does this have serious impact on the quality of our education?
It already has, because we're experiencing brain drain. A lot of people are going away in search of greener pastures. Even within Africa too, they prefer to go to Africa, where other African countries that are paying attention to them. Sometimes I just ask myself, if I can close my eyes and open it, and then all the monies that have been stashed away in foreign bank accounts are brought back to Nigeria, how far we could have gone, where we would have been. Nigeria would have been the what. In fact, sometimes it really makes me want to weep. So it's when one individual cuts away so much money, you really wonder, what are you doing? You can only sleep in one bed, you can only drive in one car, you can only live so long. If God is so merciful, you live up to 150 years, you will die. What happens to all those monies you've snatched away? The children you snatched away money for, who never worked for it, they won't have value for it, so they will simply squander it. At the end, nobody is better for it. So the earlier we learn to just work, in fact, I don't know when our moral compass will change. My prayer is that it does change at some time in the future.
And you know, funny enough, the people that stack away this money don't want to live abroad. They always live here and they visit and come back.
Yeah, because they can't face the hard. Those countries are really hard. They're not as easy as, if you see what our brothers who live here and go there, how they suffer. Some of them push carts in shops and all. Meanwhile, if they were things we are working here, they should be in the top echelon of certain ministries and parastatals or businesses. But because the people have chosen to develop their own place. So we go to read from where it has developed, and then we come back to impoverish our people.
All right. Doc, I hope what I'm about to do doesn't put me in your back book because, you know, I'm quite out. Yes, and I can't help myself but ask. I know we're supposed to just talk education, but this is a point where I break the rules, and I break rules a lot. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yeah.
But I want to ask, as a woman, a wife, a mother, in public life, what has that experience been, and how were you able to do it? Please, oblige me, please.
Okay, no, it's important that I say it because it may help some other people who have found themselves. One thing I can say for myself is this sort of a unity and harmony that I have with my husband. So my job that I do is also his job. His job is also mine. So we are so integrated and interwoven. And when the children started coming, they became an integral part of it. I was also blessed by virtue of where I work. There are some incentives for married women. For instance, if you're a nursing mother and you have a child, you're permitted to travel with your child and nanny until the child is 2, all expense paid. So it made it easier for you to be able to be available. And the maternity leave we had was 6 months, fully paid. If after 6 months you need more, you can take, but you may have half salary then. So you can actually be on maternity leave for up to a year and all of that. So those things enable one to be able to recalibrate your life and be able to work together. Then when you have the opportunity, you go on vacation with the children. Yeah, we do not have money to travel out. We go to the village during the long vacation. That's when I take my annual leave, and my husband takes his, and then we travel with the children just to be able to blend. So all of those things have really worked for us. Everything is about planning. If you understand how to plan your life, it makes things easier for you. I know it's not easy. Ministry is also there. So you're distributing your life amongst all of this. And then once you have an understanding with your spouse, it becomes easier to work together.
Right. You're talking about a supporting husband.
Yes.
But, Dr. Olachi, in a male-dominated world as a development expert, how did you conquer this terrain? Like, I want the girl child who will happen on this program to get something. Because it's not every day you see women excelling in the man's world.
What I always say when I have the opportunity is, we were all in class with them and we were dusting them. Throughout my education from primary school, secondary school, I was best graduating student, first degree, best graduating student, postgraduate, best graduating student. PhD had one of the best thesis and all of that. So if you can accept me going that far, then when it comes into the corporate world, you see me as less of a person. The answer is a no. You go out there, if you know what you're worth and what you have, go and slug it out with the rest of the society. It's not a matter of who is male or who is female. It's a matter of what can you deliver, what can you offer. If you're able to prove what you can offer, then the job will be given to you. It's as simple as that.
All right. Thank you very much. But at this point, that's where I ask for your advice to Nigerian government, to the parents, to the students, and to the girl child.
Okay. Starting from the Nigerian government, let that be a deliberate policy on female education. And then, like I have suggested earlier, if it can be made compulsory that no girl child gets married before 18. So that at least by 18, the way our education is structured is, she should already be in the university. If a girl has entered the university, want to bring her out to marry her off, she will say no. By then, she would have known her rights and all of that. So that policy could help make sure that girls are put in school. Then to the parents, as much as possible, try and let your children know that the most important thing in their lives when they are still young is education. Let them go to school, get the education. Once you finish doing what you have to do as a parent, then the sky will be their starting point in terms of going ahead with your life. And in the process, you're already teaching them things about life, what they need to do, what they need to pay attention to, so that the character will be built as they are also becoming intellectuals. So they all work together, hand in hand. Which other category of people? The girl child.
The girl child.
I want every girl child to believe in herself. Everybody that is born on earth, God has a plan for us. He said that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So because he has made us, he created us, he has a plan. Focus on that plan of God for your life. Whatever it is like you like to do. What I always tell, some people ask me, how can I discover where my passion lies? I said, that thing that when they wake you up to go and do, you can do it for free. Follow it, pursue it. Anything you can offer for free, that's where your calling is. Pursue it and you will achieve it.
All right, and that's it for today on The Insight. I will be speaking to Dr. Olachi Chuks-Ronnie, Regional Coordinator, Southern Nigeria Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. She is a mentor, a coach, a counselor, a marriage counselor, and a pastor. Dr. Olachi Chuks-Ronnie, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure too.
All
Thank
right.
you.
And do remember that on The Insight, your views matters. You've listened to Dr. Olachi. What's your view? Let us know what you think about these issues. Reach us with the hashtag The Insight or at Aneke TV on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Till we come your way same time tomorrow. I am your host, Uche Osai. Bye-bye.